Hey, Fitheads. Today we talk with Hannah Wendt, the co-founder of TruDiagnostic, which is an epigenetic test to tell you how old you are biologically, not chronologically. That you just have to remember. And how to improve that. This one was freaking awesome.
So many awesome little nuggets of information. My favorite right off the bat was she said your genes are affect about 20% and what you do with your life affects about 80%. That is so empowering.
I
For
know.
years I thought, oh, I've whatever, just bad knees, they run in my family, or bad genes that, we all have blah 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 blah. But if you actually have 80%, control over what's going on in your life or how you're feeling or how you're healthy or what your aging process or whatever, like so empowering. Such a good start to the right off the bat.
I know. It was really fascinating and to hear how they're talking about grouping people and looking at the whole world and how this is really changing how we look at humans, health, and science. It's like, yeah, a paradigm shift that she's talking about. Yeah, stick around. This is a good one.
Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Hi, Hannah. Welcome.
Thanks, Allie. Nice to meet you. I'm excited to chat today.
Yeah, me too. First question, how do I live forever?
That's a popular one we get, Don't want to be the bearer of bad news by any chance. I think focusing on lifespan is almost a lost cause as of right now. Um, we really like to focus on, health span. How many healthy years can you have at the end of your life? Unless there's some wicked supplement or procedural based therapy medicine that causes us to live to 500. It's pretty good cap right now, around 120, 125 on average, I'd say.
And do you believe in that cap?
I think there are many theories out there as to why we age or how we age. There's one that's really popular called the hyperfunction theory of aging. And I would say that's probably my favorite. And that is, really linking more of like a mathematical reason as to why we age in terms of our bodies just kind of overgrowing at the cellular level, and that we can take maybe certain therapies to stop that. But I do believe there's a cap out there, unless there's a new technology or a new molecule involved.
Okay, well, I'll let you know because it would be on this podcast if it was announced. Okay, so first, can you just tell us base level, what is epigenetics?
Yeah, epigenetics is an interesting buzzword nowadays that I think gets maybe thrown around or misused as sometimes, but really epi is a Greek prefix. It just means above or on top of. So we're quite literally just looking on top of your genome or your genetics and your DNA. So if we remember back to our like eighth grade biology days, your genetics is going to be really that 20% of your data inside your body that's not going to change. It makes up these stagnant health outcomes, these predispositions that are going to be passed from earlier previous family members to you. Epigenetics, though, is really going to be the software that runs that genetics or that hardware. So these epigenetics have modifications and modification-based mechanism of actions and processes in which they can actually change. So we can turn off and turn on certain genes that may lead to certain diseases. So it's kind of about this balance of shifting these markers, these epigenetic modifications in your favor. So I really like to think of it as a light switch, right? We're kind of controlling that light switch to see if it's turned on or turned off. And really, everything we're doing affects our epigenetics. It's how we're interacting with the environment. Like I mentioned, the genomics is 20% of kind of our health outcomes. Epigenetics is actually going to be 80%. So it's quite literally giving you the tools to do what you will with your life, your kind of behavior and how that affects health outcomes.
Okay, so it's only 20% my fault that I'm not super jacked.
Exactly. Most of it's in your hands, Allie.
Okay, got it. So Yeah, tell us what you do at TruDiagnostics.
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders at TruDiagnostics. So TruDiagnostic has been around for 4.5 years, just about. We have, one of, if not the largest private epigenetic databases in the world, where we've run about 75,000 samples for those who are curious about understanding how they're aging and kind of looking at their epigenome and the modifications they're making, and taking, a baseline test and retesting to hopefully reduce that number one risk factor for all-cause mortality and morbidity being aging. If I had to sum it up, though, in a very concise way, I would say TruDiagnostic is a leading health data company that specializes in understanding, interpreting, and really knowing what the underlying epigenome is meaning for our health. So I'm super excited to work in this space. It's really new. There's a lot of research around it. I personally believe it's causing a massive paradigm shift, not only in laboratory-based testing or biomarker testing, but I would go as far to say even the entire field of medicine as a whole. I think I definitely would, and believe it's changing how we interpret different markers.
Certainly changing how much
Huge.
I feel like I have. That would change how I view myself. That must be a pretty common reaction to what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a way to make this even easier to understand too, Max, is, you see all these quotes on social media that's like, you are what you eat, or food is medicine, or your DNA is not your destiny, or you're not, something about your genes and you being a victim to your past. What those quotes are all really describing is epigenetics without explicitly stating it. So I think we're hinting at that. We're starting to learn and see different outcomes depending on and has an unhealthy diet compared to someone who eats a really healthy diet, right? You're going to get two completely different phenotypic outwards expressions, and twins are a really good example of that, right? I'm not a twin. I don't know if Ali or Max you are.
Oh, I'm gonna get so excited.
We have several people on our TruDiagnostic team who are actually twins. But if you're identical twins, you have the same genome. But one this person I'm talking about lives in New York, sister lives in, California, completely different cultures, surrounded by completely different availability to different resources. One in the city, a lot less green space. One in LA, you have the beach, the ocean, the green space. So it is quite literally changing their epigenome because their environment and how they're interacting with it, that behavior is influencing them at a cellular level.
Is that why you hired them?
I didn't know she was a twin until recently. She's still a new employee, I would say, at TruDiagnostics. So she's still a couple months in, but like I just found that out. I know that she's like personally passionate about science because of it. She's very, very, very smart, way smarter than I am. So it's interesting. We definitely need to run some experiments on her and her twin.
So
One has tap water, one has
Yeah.
yeah, I know when you talk about where they're living having an effect, it feels like there has to be some things that are just a huge lever to pull like that, and then the smaller things where it's like, oh, I'm kind of drinking a little bit of arsenic every day in LA. Like what do you think is the biggest lever that you would see making a difference?
Yeah, this is also a question I get all of the time. I mainly spend a ton of time speaking with my healthcare providers on like what they can do to really make that change. Every single patient is extremely different. Every single person is extremely individualized, because their, again, behavior, their environment, their nurturing of their own body is going to be completely different. So it's very, very specific to the one person. We can look at individual, randomized controlled trials of, measuring the DNA methylation, the epigenetics before undergoing some type of treatment group with a control group alongside with the specific intervention, and then measuring them after to actually see that effect. So there are those studies out there. They're still few, far and in between, just because this field is so new. I always go back to the lifestyle factors. Like, they make the biggest difference. I know that may be boring. I know it's intuitive. But if people are not already focusing on that and there are ways to optimize, I highly, highly recommend starting there. I mean, it's just like it's a no-brainer. And there's what I call like the big four, or the fundamentals, which is your nutrition / diet.
Journaling, cold
Yeah.
exposure.
Yeah. Physical activity, right?
Prayer, obviously.
All the things, right?
You mentioned DNA methylation. Can you explain what that is for the Fitheads?
Yeah, of course. So for the Fitheads, the DNA methylation is just an epigenetic modification. That's quite literally what we're measuring. So if something is, methylated, meaning there's a little carbon and 3 hydrogens present, that gene expression is going to be turned off or less expressed. So that's quite literally what we're looking at. To which extent is that gene shut off or shut off or turned on? And if it was turned on, that CH3 group would be missing. It'd be more expressed, and you'd end up going down the central dogma and receive this phenotypic outwards expression. So again, it's not that you want everything necessarily turned on or, turned off. It's definitely a balance. I like to call it, I think I may have already said it too, shifting those methylation markers in your favor. And a good example I'd like to give of that is, if everything was methylated and turned off, then we'd even have our tumor suppressor genes turned off, and we don't want that. We want them turned on to suppress tumors. But same is true of the opposite, right? We want our oncogenes methylated, our cancer genes methylated and turned off. So there's like a teeter-totter type of balance, almost a double-edged sword.
So before we go any further, you had mentioned a big four of lifestyle things, but I think we kind of cut you off. Nutrition, exercise, sleep.
Nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress. Stress is the
Stress. Oh, I like that. And is that how you, that's your, when people ask you that sort of simple question, that's your simple prescription? Is that the idea? Start with those
Yeah.
four and then figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, those aren't ranked in any specific order. Like, according to the data and research, I could definitely probably rank them. I mean, this test, testing your epigenetics, your biological age, also isn't the end all be all. Like, I'm obviously biased, but I would not be stupid enough to tell you, hey, you only need to do this testing for the rest of your life, right? Highly recommend getting your genome tested, understanding that other 20%. It's still, a large percentage, and you want to understand what's happening to your body at a genetic level. But also, are you testing with a CBC panel, right? Are you testing your lab values every 6 months? Are you testing your hormones every 6 months? If your hormones are optimized, then your epigenetics probably aren't going to be optimized either. So you can use all of those tests, mapped synergistically as well.
And when you're talking about testing, I took the TruDiagnostic test. I didn't have to go anywhere. It was great. Is there a difference between the at-home test versus in a lab?
No, there's not. Same exact process, right? I think that's what's really cool about this test is it's just a finger prick blood spot card, so it's super, super easy. Well, that's my opinion. Some people don't like to prick their finger, I should say. But we would never, I would say, move away from the blood spot card, as that's where these algorithms and interpretations and clocks have been validated in that same sample type. So it'll be a while until, or if we ever switch to like saliva or a buccal swab where you're swabbing your mouth. So I don't know how you thought the finger prick was, Allie, or if that was difficult at all.
No, it was great. I didn't have to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't have to put pants on.
You do it in the comfort of your own home. You're good, not a big hassle whatsoever.
Right. There are other people telling me how old I am in a different way. Like, telomeres are really popular or something. I'm still unclear on what those are. But Yeah, what are your thoughts on the other ways to test biological age?
Yeah, I think you can make a biological age test out of anything, right? I could say, "Hey, Allie,
Wrinkles.
run from A to point B, right? And let me do a little calculation here, and see how fast you were." So people
I'd
do
rather prick my finger. Ugh.
than run, right? It's just that much easier. But there's all types of biological ages like grip strength, gait speed, etc. Telomeres you mentioned, those used to definitely be the gold standard, years ago. The issue with those kind of biological ages, we call them, is they're not very predictive of outcomes. So when you're clinically using this, when you're doing N-of-1 precision-based medicine and you're testing yourself, the point of this test is for it to be predictive of what's happening in the future based on your current state, right? So we can predict, all-cause mortality and morbidity the best with a biological age clock we just created with Harvard. We published that back in October. We don't report out on the statistic I'm about to give you, but we can predict death with a 92% accuracy rate with
Oh my God.
What?
the Omics MH. But it's
Even
nothing
getting
we
hit by a
report out.
bus? Even getting hit by a bus? Don't roll your eyes, Max.
Um,
Well, no, that's so funny that you said that, because my first thought was like, and we also one of the other products we offer is murder.
Oh yeah, they predict 1 year and then in a year they kill you.
yeah, dude, struck by lightning, tripwire when you walk out of the door, right? So
Right.
yeah, it's definitely eerie that the predictors, the algorithms, they're getting almost too good. But yeah, essentially within a 5-year window, obviously not accounting for natural occurrences or
Yeah, of course.
disasters.
Right. And you don't
Do you,
report on that.
Correct. Yeah, it's actually a very hard calculation to do anyways. Like we don't like run it, we don't hold it. It was just an algorithm we created with Harvard as well.
do you know
Like
yours?
it's a hard math problem, so you just don't do it.
It's a very hard math problem. And no, Max, I don't know mine. And same with another
Okay.
algorithm that was popularized too called GrimAge. That one is like, GrimAge, Grim Reaper. That one I don't think is even commercially available. But it was like a previous one released in 2018, 2019 that you could run, which is like a death date type of biological age clock. Allie's either like, "Ooh."
Eh.
Well,
So
but then
have
is
you
that
seen
is
people?
that something you can mess around with? Can you change that? Right now, you're going to die at 89. If you do this, this, and this, you'll die at 155. Like, is that possible? Or is that just sort of like a snapshot of right now? Or is that like, sorry, this is hardwired?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's snapshot, right? It's based on those epigenetic modifications and factors. So yeah, people who are like, "Oh, I'm so scared to
Okay.
test my epigenetics." I'm like, hey, if you have a phone, we already know everything about you. If you've already tested your genetics, like you're good. Like you can trace someone's genetics back to them, right? Um, so your epigenetics is changeable. It again, my personal unsolicited opinion. I think that is, more in a more positive light. Hey, you can change your epigenome where with your genomics you can't.
And for the record, we're soliciting your opinion explicitly
Well, you're
right
here.
now. So just to get that just to get that on the
There we go. There we go. I won't hold back. I won't hold back moving forward.
record.
So when you're talking about user data, is there a bigger goal that you're trying to get to? If you hit this number of people, then you'll unlock even more information.
Yeah, definitely. That's the goal. And that's kind of what I was hinting to at the beginning as well is, hey, this is causing like a massive paradigm shift. With further research that we're currently doing with Harvard right now, we're actually able to report out about 4,000 what we call EBPs or epigenetic biomarker proxies. So with that same blood spot card you and Allie. It's a fairly quick turnaround time too, within just a couple of weeks. Again, getting all of those results delivered to you together and then understanding what you can do about them. So we're really excited and think this marker is really going to change how a lot of healthcare providers are practicing medicine.
You're
Yeah.
talking about how everything's so personalized and everybody's so different. Are you finding, though, groups of people that you can kind of say, oh, you're this like blue group and you should act in this way because you're so similar to all of them and we know this works for them?
So, even with giving you how much you've smoked in the past, which is better than your self-reported smoking status, we can tell you down to the zip code, where you live, kind of based on these markers. And again, that's going to be, very useful in terms of the exposures to, pollutants and different toxins. So you can kind of start to group people by those patterns, right? Which things are turned on and which things are turned off. This is what people really refer to as agiotypes. This is an idea from, I believe his name is Dr. Michael Snyder out of Stanford, where it's this idea to provide like a more personalized understanding of how different individuals age, based on kind of, not just epigenetics, but entire underlying biological patterns. So things like examining molecular changes that occur over time and the metabolism, the protein level, immune system activity, and more. If that like answers your question.
Yeah, and
What
it's just coincidence that I used the term blue earlier, but have you studied blue zone people?
Yeah. They're obviously very interesting, because they're going to live longer than most people. And, a question I get all the time too that I think is really funny is like, well, they drink a bunch of wine. Like I can drink a bottle a night. Why am I aging faster? I'm like, well, you're also working like 70 hours a week and you don't have friends and you're by yourself. So that's probably why. So
Yikes. This is your diss track? My gosh.
Can you tell how many friends I have based on my methylation?
no, that would not
Oh
yet.
my
That would be
God.
great. Obviously, people who have better aging have like better quality relationships. So it is interesting. And like why we point to the blue zones. One group I'm particularly interested in, besides just the blue zones, is really these communities in these more underdeveloped countries. In particular, there are several groups in Costa Rica that just live a very long time, the same that you would see in blue zones, but they are in very deep poverty. So, it's not only that socioeconomic impact that I think makes a difference, obviously, in the blue zones, but that leads more to the quality of their, relationships, their relationship with self, them still, growing their own food and making the most out of their resources and, doing a lot of movement. They're probably not sitting on, phones or, in front of screens. So super interested to kind of dig into, again, why is there that difference, but yet they're living just as long as people in the blue zone. So I think we'll see and start to understand a lot more of kind of how the resources affect biological aging and epigenetics.
I'd love to know how bad can it be? Have you seen like a 10-year-old that's 50?
No 10-year-olds that have been 50, not yet. We've had people younger than 18 test with us with parental consent, of course. The one person I've seen that was like the worst was around 20 years or so older. So it was an 80-year-old man who ended up coming back to be between like 100 105, so 20 to 25 year age acceleration. And again, you don't see that. Like I had never seen this. I was scared to do the report review with the healthcare provider. What are they going to say? I already got all of the quality assurance, quality, control type of data back saying it was a valid type of sample. And turns out this patient, it was really his son who made him take the test. And after speaking with the healthcare provider and getting more information about the patient, he actually was just diagnosed with, early onset, or not early onset, but dementia and Alzheimer's, and had several neurodegenerative diseases. So taking a look in the literature and, matching those two up, you're absolutely going to have age acceleration. That's a no-brainer. But that significant amount of acceleration was already documented in the literature too.
Hmm. How about a biggest improvement you've seen in one of your
Mm.
sort of recurring patients?
Yeah. Biggest improvement, we've seen multi-year age reversals. I think any type of age reversal is very exciting and very unique just because we are aging chronologically when we take this test. So, naturally it's going to be hard to really counteract that. Not to monopolize the conversation about this as well, but are you all familiar with Rejuvenation Olympics by chance?
No.
No.
Have you heard of that? Yeah. So, have you heard of the crazy guy, Brian Johnson, who spends all of
That
his
was
money?
my next question.
Yes. Yeah.
There you go. I start with the Rejuvenation Olympics. I asked that one next, and people are like, yes, I know who this is. So we created this website or this competition with Brian Johnson, this Rejuvenation Olympics. And it's pointing back to that question, hey, how much can we reverse this? What can we do about it, right? And really, it's on that website we quantify people who have the largest reversals. It's not possible to have a 10 or 20 year reversal, not yet. You really have to do a lot of hard work, and I think we still need to understand how these epigenetic clocks really perform. But if you go to that leaderboard, you can see people who are ranked. We see a percentage improved from baseline, and one of these pace of aging clocks, we see it by about 28%, which is very impressive. So we've updated the board a couple times, and we'll continue to do so. It's a little bit hard logistics wise to get all of the consents in people who are, wanting or not wanting to share their data if they qualify for the board. So it's an interesting epigenetic leaderboard. The goal is to never cross the finish line, don't die type of thing. Brian pushes.
Very unique goal. I like that. Very
Yeah.
specific, very unique to this. That's that's funny.
I love your laugh, Max.
Oh, thanks.
So that's like the change to improve, but what about like what's the best you've seen where they just automatically were super young based on like luck or lifestyle in general?
Yeah, I've probably seen initially at baseline around a 7 to 8 year age reversal. A lot of times those people have kind of like the blue zone genetics. They have people in their family who are living above 100, past 105. So that 20% is still accounting for a little bit as well. But also those people are heavily invested in their own health, right? They don't take 100 supplements a day. They're very regimented and using, science-backed research to really take baselines, implement one change and not change, many other things to get some confounding variables and factors. And really doing more of the N-of-1 experimentation to see how they can reverse it and push it even lower.
Well, yeah, but
And
obviously everything is specific, individual, extremely individual. But have you seen sort of common either things people did to improve or things they cut out that were like super aging factors, smoking cigs or shotgunning beers or whatever? Are there common aging things that age people real bad or things that people start doing common? Obviously it's very individual. More
Yeah.
haircuts. I mean, I don't know, I'm just throwing a spitball in here.
Yeah, I'll give you one that's like maybe not as like documented. I don't know. We were talking about this the other day when we were looking at more of like internal data analysis. So Ali, you probably registered your kit and like went through that process. So people have to register their kit. We don't do anything with that information. It's not used to create the results, just to say like, hey, can we see associations or correlations? It's a very uncontrolled data set, survey-like, subjective. But the one thing that was like super strong and connected for whatever reason is people who have more sex have slower aging. So there's that. And it was I mean, I guess it's intuitive, right? Like the person could be more fit anyways, right? More active, maybe lower BMI, more physical
Happier.
Is it
exercise. Yeah,
specifically with a
happier.
partner?
We did not ask that question, so we're not
So
sure.
it's not necessarily social connection or
Right,
Well,
you're
but it has
right.
to be
okay.
because that's sexually active, right? Wait a minute. Maybe I didn't understand.
Well,
Trying to get the question right.
well, yeah, depends what you count, I guess, sexually active as, like sex with self, sex with partner, multiple
Sex with
partner.
long-term partner versus multiple whatevers.
Strangers. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, because there has to be a difference there. Like Ali, or I don't know if it was you, Ali, or Max, who said like, yeah, the social engagement part. Like maybe if they have many partners, it's a lot of social engagement, and if it's even, better, slower aging, who knows?
More friends. That's what you're saying. A lot of friends, you know. That's a
So,
great one.
are you testing globally? Like, what's the youngest country?
Yeah, we are testing globally. That's a great question, and I don't have an answer for you. I'm not quite sure. We mostly test a very select group, people who are trying to optimize
Right.
their overall health. They're usually Caucasian descent, white, US, higher socioeconomic status, and then secondarily probably Canada. But I would say I would guess we probably don't have the best aging, just because of those societal and stress-based factors, but I would definitely have to dig into the data to understand that a little bit further.
Do you have trends like city versus rural? I hate that fucking word. Rural.
I can't say it either. We do, yeah. So I kind of alluded a little bit to the example at the beginning, like being in New York City, being in LA with the twin who works with TruDiagnostic, and more green space. So I guess not necessarily city versus rural, but if you live even in the city and have more plants like inside your house and whatnot, it's been shown to be connected and correlated with slower aging. So Ali, I saw you perk up. That's like my excuse to have like all of my house plants. I have like a ton of them around me right now. There's one behind you too, Max, I
Yeah,
see.
Max is crushing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how often do you suggest we should test?
Yeah, so you just did a baseline, Ali. Once you get those results back, I can definitely set up a time to go through those results and do a, proper report review with you and give you some recommendations if you want them, or, different things to try and do your own N of one experimentation on yourself. And then I'd recommend testing, every 6 to 12 months or so, somewhere in between there, if you're making a change and you want to see if that's, positively or negatively affecting your aging. And some people can do it every 2 to 3 months if they really want to, if they want to get more quicker feedback and data. So we absolutely can see a change in as little as 2 months in some of the epigenetic clocks and algorithms.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, that also means I have to commit to making a change before I'd retest. Ugh.
I know there are
I'm
so
testing
many
all the
people.
time. I don't understand. I'm testing every
So many people say, yeah, like have the kit, sitting on their desk, and they'll try to do like a health cleanse or something before, and it's still sitting on their desk 6 months later after I see them and talk to them. I'm like, just do it, just get a baseline, you'll be fine. It's all changeable, and then we can reevaluate and retest from there.
Personally, how often are you testing?
I'm testing about every 6 months. I'm more interested in the algorithms, the aging, it's very fun. I'm more interested in like at a cellular level, the specific epigenetic markers that are changing. So each test we measure about 1.2 million different DNA methylation markers, things that are going to be turned on and turned off. So, I like to see the individual differences and kind of which genes I'm affecting, and, what's that related to? Is it related to glucocorticoid receptor elements and, being better at regulating stress, essentially, because we know cortisol increases with stress. So trying different, protocols and interventional treatment plans to look at it more at the individual level.
Is there a plan to try and make sense for the average fithead like me that would like want to get more granular, but it seems like overwhelming to, you know, to look at all of that so deeply.
Yeah, yeah, it's really hard. I think eventually we'll absolutely have like a list of the most important, I don't know, maybe it's top 20, top 50, like epigenetic regulators. And we would say, like, hey, Allie, here's Mark, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're at this level. You need to be here. This is what you need to do. So it's definitely like not that personalized quite yet. Again, it really relates back to aging, but I truly believe it'll absolutely be there, at one point. Have you tested your genetics, Allie or Max?
Yes,
Yeah.
the DNA test, we had them on, and they also sent me a freaking Bible of about me that seemed like insane. Yeah, I think they're also solving that like help make sense for the average population thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard. The reason I asked too is because, the Human Genome Project went on where they were just like sequencing everyone's genomes. And when they were doing this in the 2000s, they quite literally, it would cost a million or over $1 million per sample. Um, and, once they were examining this genome, they thought it would solve everything, all disease, all, health issues. And we realized it did not. It led to a lot more questions. It was like a pretty big failed project. So we think a lot of the answers lie in the actual like epigenome and kind of what we can control. So the testing is still a little bit more expensive right now. Um, but now, to sequence your genome, it's less than $100. You can get it done for less than 24 hours. And I think we'll see some price drops here soon, probably by the end of the year, even for the epigenetic testing. So make it more accessible to people, I think is the goal, not just having, people who may have a little bit more income to spend on, a fun test, but really having people test and target kind of aging to help them slow that down.
And the type of people you don't want just biohacking and through fitness enthusiasts. I mean, you do obviously you want client or no, you want customers, but you want it would be nice for us too to get a sense of like sort of a macro view of different types of
Yeah.
people, different ages, different demographics, different locations, blah blah blah. So yeah, that would be really helpful. I think that's kind of why we're asking you all these like sort of zoom out questions is that it's a two-part thing. One, it's really fun to know your own personal stuff, but B, it's also fun to see giant trends from a lot of data that's coming in on your guys' end that we may or may not be privy to.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's why we partnered with Harvard as well, right? Because they have an amazing biobank that's collected, you know, 50 to 100 years worth of samples. That's why there's no saliva-based sample, or, that's why we don't believe in saliva collection too, because all of these biobanks are blood. They're not saliva. So we can't, relate the DNA from saliva to health outcomes. So the Harvard cohort that we work with, about 5,000 samples, that's going to be much more representative of, the general population, right? So we can kind of compare both of the cohorts, which is really
Mhm.
interesting because, yeah, you're going to have, different differences that are quite dramatic when you compare both of them head to head. So that's a good question, good point as well.
So we
And
do
I
have
get
one question that we ask every guest. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Max. You want to
well, I
ask?
guess off no, well, we have to in a minute, and it's sort of such a depressing question. Spoil not to that's called burying the lead. But back to the fitness enthusiasts, is there something that you see that a lot of physical fitness enthusiast people are doing wrong? Are they like is overtraining super common, or are they
Okay.
just hyper
I
focused
feel
on telling people
attacked.
they're vegan all the time, or do they
I'm gonna
Yeah.
live forever because I don't eat meat.
too
Shut
much
up.
stretching?
Oh, are you vegan, Allie?
Yes, not by
Okay.
choice.
Have you watched You Are What You Eat on Netflix, the documentary series?
No.
So yeah, pretty controversial. Got a lot of like, yeah, clapbacks and stuff from influencers and stuff, I would say. But ran that study with Stanford with a vegan versus omnivore diet with aging in as little as 8 weeks. And again, there are some we created the study in a very specific way. It wasn't like it was a healthy omnivorous diet. They were definitely taking in more calories. So we were looking at, more individual level changes. It was a twin study. So one twin would do omnivore diet, one twin would do vegan. And the vegans had slower aging, which was interesting. So
Suck it,
we'll
Max.
we'll wait and see when you get your results back. But I do want to add that again, it's not an end all kind of be all. We're not recommending people to go vegan. It was a very short study. But overtraining also can lead to some advanced aging, right? The more oxidative stress, the more inflammation. So it'll be interesting to see your results and kind of, the balance there.
Yeah. Okay,
But we
interesting.
can,
Well, I went vegan because I had high cholesterol, so I'm sure there's other stuff going on making me old. Don't worry.
yeah. What's really cool and what the Fitheads may be interested in as well is even with the blood spot card you set in, Allie, we can actually quantify your grip strength, your gait speed, your VO2 max, and your
You just watch my
FEV1.
YouTube channel and you know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting VO2 max. I always feel so crazy looking at that on my Apple Watch. I'm like, this can't be right. I definitely need to huff and puff into a mask to get a good uh actual test of that. But you can do it from my
Yeah.
epigenetics. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And that again, that's just it's not going to be perfect. Like it's a proxy, right? It's one of those EBPs again, an epigenetic biomarker proxy. So I mean the correlation is still really good, but you're not going to get as perfect as when you're actually going in and doing the exam. But again, that's like pretty scary to some people. It can be expensive. It's not an easy, accessible test for people to do. So yeah, you can just use this as a baseline. And then we may say, hey, your aerobic exercise looks awesome. Your anaerobic sucks. Like you need to work on increasing your gait speed and your grip strength and try weightlifting, try hit, do these things. And we've seen reversals in those markers too. So that's more of a fun outcome we can give, like a characteristic in a trait-based report. It's not like a main outcome that's related to, the disease states and stuff we were talking about earlier, but it's a pretty cool one. I thought your audience may be interested in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wait, I need to ask this because we just talked about it on the previous episode. You said gait speed. We weren't sure that if gait speed showed how old you were or if actually changing your gait speed will change your biological age. Is there an answer to that?
Yeah, so that's interesting the way you just asked it. Like gait speed, just referring to the speed at like what you walk can be an indicator of health and like functional status in older adults because we know as we like get older we're slower, right? We're like scooting along rather than like running. But yeah, I mean it's
just scooting over, bingo.
just scooting along. So it's definitely correlated, right? Like you can't sprint. I don't know. I mean, I've seen older people, I guess, try to sprint. So it's definitely correlated. Muscle, it has to do with muscle strength and muscle mass, joint health, and neurological function, cardiovascular and respiratory efficiency within the body. So it can be used in clinical settings as a quick and effective like screening tool, but probably a pretty poor one.
We were talking about like flossing. People who floss live longer, and
Oh, right.
or it was another one of those. And I was like, well, is it because they're flossing and they're actually affecting their oral microbiome, or is it just the type of person who flosses every night also goes to bed at the same time every night and doesn't,
Mhm.
doom scroll every night and doesn't, drink shotgun a bunch of beers and then, pass out. You know what I mean? Like that type of, it was one of those questions where,
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, everything we're like talking about and discussing here, it's all like correlation, very, very strong correlation. And you can like look at
right.
that connection, not causation. I think epigenetics is really exciting when it comes to causation in terms of like aging. But again, it's like definitely not definitive by any means.
Right. Right. It's not like if I floss every night, then I can suddenly do meth all day. Like these things, it's not a balance
Next
that
to
way.
a
That's what we were
plant.
sort of yeah, exactly. I got the plant back there.
Weird example, but yes, exactly.
Just trying to make it accessible.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about this when we mentioned blue zones, but wine, no, specifically drinking, I'm guessing is probably one that's really effing up the switches that are on or off. How do you incorporate this? Oh, this is the one question we ask everyone. How do you incorporate drinking into your fitness regimen, or is it not at all? And specifically for you, how have you seen alcohol affect people's
Yeah.
biological age?
So there were really early, again, purely correlative studies saying, hey, one drink a week is better for biological aging. It was just based on like survey data and information. Further studies show, no recommended alcohol as it relates to biological aging. So there is one study in particular that shows if you drink 7 drinks a week, if you're a woman, double that if you're a man, that is considered actually alcohol use disorder, which is, I don't think that much when you think if you're, I don't know, drinking a glass of wine every night at dinner, like that would qualify you for alcohol use disorder. You're a woman. But that is actually associated with a 2.22 year epigenetic age acceleration. So there is an increase there. For me personally, I don't drink much. Like I can't remember a time like me and my husband came home after work and we were like, oh, I just had a hard day. Gotta crack open, this bottle of whatever. We just don't drink that much. But when we do have like an event or friends visiting and we do have like a social gathering or drinking activity, it's usually, more than one should consume, right? So it like goes and
Right.
comes in waves. But yeah, I'm not a huge drinker myself, and I think I've gotten away from that after my college years.
I'm trying to do the calculation now. If having a drink a night takes away 2.22 years, how long do I have to have a drink a night for that to happen? And then I can divide that by, and basically want to figure out every time I have a drink, how much time is taken away from my life.
Yeah, yeah. You could extrapolate it. I haven't done that. What's really cool, Allie, I don't know, your answer, how much you drink, is you were asked on the registration, hey, how much do you drink? So what we do is we actually quantify your alcohol consumption by looking at your methylation markers, and then we compare it to what you said on the registration process.
And everyone lies.
Oh, a trick question.
Yeah.
They're all trick questions, right? I told you my VO2 max was 100.
So it's
It's
interesting.
not.
So some people can lie, right? Like I've done like some healthcare provider report reviews where it's the actual provider and they put regularly and they're like in the 99th percentile and they're like, yeah, I drink 2 or 3 glasses of wine every night. There are some others who don't tell the truth and it can be, a little awkward, but I think it does have more to do. There's more to it than just purely alcohol consumption. It's, how you metabolize alcohol. And I think there are definitely other factors involved as well.
How you sleep
Yeah, and
after, I think that's a big one. That's one I've
Mhm.
seen my thing and my eight sleep. They're always like, anytime I have a beer, 2 beers, they're like, "Whoa, are you okay? You slept 30% worse than your HRV, your
you
resting heart rate,
okay?
your blah blah blah, your blah, blah." And I'm like, "Okay, dude, it's fine, it's fine. I just chill, just relax." But yeah, I think the sleep affection or the effect of my sleep post thing was also pretty bad.
Yeah, but also like when I drink, like personally, like yeah, I want like, you know, food that's bad for me. I stay up
Yeah.
later. Like I don't want to work out. I'm not going to the gym. I may take a walk around the house, like you're not doing much.
Take a walk
Let's
to
take
the
your hangover
kitchen
cure.
and then right back to bed. I'll track my
Yeah,
steps there.
so
Yeah,
it's
that makes sense. It's
Hey,
one of
I
those levers that affects other levers. Ugh.
yeah, it's
Some sort of an
definitely
atomic lever.
all downhill from there.
Okay, so this has been awesome. Oh, you also have a podcast, right?
Yeah, yes, I do. It's called Everything Epigenetics. So I interview a lot of researchers and talk with them, trying to make this, more applicable in everyone's daily life, kind of what we can do about it too.
Very cool. And where can the Fitheads also find True Diagnostic?
Yes, they can go to TruDiagnostic.com. So it's just TRU and then diagnostic is singular if anyone wants to learn more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been eye-opening.
Yeah, thanks, Allie. Thanks, Max.
I'm gonna go get some plants.